The In This League Podcast Network.
This is the In This League Fantasy Football Podcast. What is up, friendos? I'm the Welsh. That is Bogman, and we are here for you again to talk about some fantasy football action because you may not know it. We know it. ITL fantasy football is back.
Right around the corner.
No, we're back.
Oh, well, we're back.
We're back.
Football's right around the corner. Don't think you're going to be able to just wade in and it's going to be okay. You got to get going right now. Let's go.
This guy, we're back. And what I mean by we're back, you get regular episodes. Regular episodes are back for you and for us in the In This League Fantasy Football sphere. We got lots to cover over time. We will lay out the schedule as we go, but what you can remember and you can count on, there was all the offseason stuff and the NFL draft, and I know it's May, but there's a lot to go through, and we might have some different episodes, but, you know, for the most part, regular ITL in some fashion is back for you. And on today's episode, Bogman and Welsh are going to be hitting the toughest offseason questions that you have to deal with in the NFL for fantasy. It's really the toughest fantasy questions that we are dealt in this offseason post-NFL draft, whether it's how do we value wide receivers, the classic quarterback conversation, running backs should dominate. That can be an entire segment itself. Solo backs or workhorses, if you will, if there are any true ones versus committees, how the rookies lay out. This is a primer. It's a primer to tackling some of the toughest questions that we have got to get going with because people are already starting some best balls. You're already going to be doing your normal draft prep, and dynasties kick up like really, really quick. So that is what we have got for you here today with our NFL lead editor, analyst, mathematician, scientist, Doge primer. Scott Bogman is here for you.
What's Doge primer? Is that like a douchey nickname?
Or like Dogecoin. Like Dogecoin.
Oh,
you're the Doge guy.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to say is Bogman's going to take you to the moon. That's all that I'm
to the moon.
That's what we're going to do. And we can take you to the moon. It's not Doge, but it is Patreon with the ITL Patreon at patreon.com. Then a little slash, then rock some ITL Army. Sign up, lock in, be one of the many and the proud in the ITL Army where you can support this little independent podcast. You can support me or Bogman. If just like supporting one makes you feel good, then like you can hold on to that however you want to do it. And we've got a lot of cool stuff going on. We've got the live streams. We've got the group me rooms. I still think to this day, the best thing that we do in any capacity of who you are and what you're looking for, I think it's there in the group me rooms. You're going to meet up with a bunch of great people. Some of these guys set up leagues all the time. It helps if you're trying to fill leagues, but you can ask information. You can bounce stuff off of people. We're in there. The group me is a really invaluable thing. Some people make great friends, whatever it is. If that's not your bag, that's okay because we got lots of other stuff. We do comedy secret shows on the side, and Bogman has got you covered with a rookie list, which you can get right now on our Patreon. And he did sit on his throne of lies that the dynasty list would be last week, but he is a truth maker because technically you're still in May. It's coming tomorrow.
I said Monday or Wednesday was what I said. So
you sit on a throne of lies, sir, but whatever you say.
Still going to be Wednesday. Hey, I'm sorry. I've got Line Star every day. I've got, baseball twice a week with you. We've got the radio. I'm writing up the black book.
We're back. We're back here doing regular football.
We're back here doing this. I'm taking my mom to doctor's appointments. Yeah.
I'm selling out. I'm selling to people. I'm like, hey,
I got to give my excuse list though. So
no, you're excused out. You were ready with that. But like I'm always like, hey, first of the month, prospect list for baseball, and it's more like the 5th is when I release mine. But what I'm getting at is if you're looking for some early prep and you want to get into Bogman's mind for Dynasty, that's available this week. You can get the Dynasty list and the rookie list. There's going to be off-season updates. I will have my updates coming up in the near future, but like I said, Bogman is the Doge King, chief editor, champion of ITL football here, so he goes first, and that's what you guys really want to lock into.
You're going to make my title like from Game of Thrones, like Scott Bogman, first of his name, head of the NFL, Lord of the Andals, all that stuff. So.
We really should we should just come up with those names and put it on our Twitter handle, because I make fun of it because everybody's like, hi, I'm the chief and editor at
senior analyst at whatever.
Yeah, I'm the senior editor analyst at Senior Smackadoodle Football Roto Sports at net. Like those are the handle. Like we should just be like, second of his name, Lord of Ringroth or whatever the Game of Thrones names are, whatever it is.
Did you say Ringroth?
Ringroth. I don't know. That sounds like something.
Ringroth. I mean, it sounds like a character name for sure.
It actually sounds like something your cat might have that you would take him to the hospital for.
Yeah. Like, hey,
bad case of Ringroth.
He's got some Ringroth here. Can we get rid of it? What is that? A pill or a cream? What do we do? So
like it's gonna.
I think I've
you
had that
Doge.
on a dingus before. So
Ringroth.
Ringroth. Yeah. And the doctor was like, "Here's this acid."
That's our leader right there. It's our football leader. He had Ringroth on his thing. But patreon.com/ITL Army. Come and sign up. Join us. Have some fun. Join the audio universe that is in this league. What better sell can we give you than that, fellas? So what we're going to be doing today, like we said, is we've got some of the big questions, near the top. There's some player specific ones. These things can change, but I think what this is these are the biggest questions. If you're sitting around, the campfire or whatever you do in summer, be very illegal in Arizona to have a campfire right now because it's 100 degrees, but some nice weather in some spots. You're sitting around, you're talking with your boys, maybe you're on a little Zoom meeting and you guys are like, well, what's the big stuff? What do we have to tackle? What's the new stuff we got to figure out in this upcoming season? Well, you probably
You're
going to ask about like what's at the top of the draft. You're going to say, hey, well, what if Aaron Rodgers isn't with the Packers? Who can I trust? Who's not in a committee? What about wide receivers? Is it too deep? Do I need to keep all that type of stuff? That's what we're going to be tackling today. I think it's a good one to kind of get prepped as we will be stepping into Dynasty Talk probably here in a little bit. We're going to have some listener-based question episodes, lots of guest stuff, and of course, the grand poupée of ITL, the mock drafts. Mock draft season is coming here real quick. And, I think one that we could do too, we should probably start up a best ball, and maybe we could, in the next couple of weeks, we could break down one of our best ball episodes. So maybe a little perk that we'll do with the ITL guys is that would, give them access to play with us if that's like your bag and you're into it.
I know our boy Braun has been lobbying for a best ball, so we'll get that going soon.
Yeah, maybe we'll set up a best ball in the next week or so, and then we will do a little breakdown of early best ball stuff. But those aren't the mock drafts. The mock drafts are glorious and all of their spectacular individualism that comes from ITL, unlike anything else, is what I've always said, Bogman. ITL mock drafts are unlike anything else. So we got a little bit of news and notes here. And might be the biggest single off-season move we had, the biggest storyline of draft day.
The biggest off-season news in 2,000 years.
In 2,000 years, because Tim Tebow is back in the NFL. Hallelujah. Praise Tim Tebow.
He is risen.
He has risen May 10th. What did you say? What did you say when we were off air? May 10th is the new Easter.
It's the new Easter, right? Yeah.
It's the new Easter.
The
Celebrate
Tebow return day. So
yep. You don't have to, you don't go and hunt for eggs. You're going to hunt for footballs on your knee. You're going to walk around on one leg and your knee and just look for footballs.
Everybody's going to Tebow in front of some trains. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Is that called Tebow? Tebowing? It's back.
Yeah.
Should I Tebow right now?
You should Tebow right
now.
I'm
going to Tebow right now on do the commentary.
Yeah. All right. So he has taken off his headphones. He looks down. He is Tebowing. It is happening right this second. There we go. This is great stuff for the radio. Yeah, he got up. He head faked a couple times, and
I did 3.
So
we did 3 Tebows just for I don't know, just three gun salute, 3 Tebow salute.
I gotta imagine.
I got winded from Tebowing. I got a little too excited. Whew.
I mean, you were really excited about Tebow. So
I mean,
kneeling down 3 times.
Who's not excited about the second coming?
At our age, that's definitely worth getting winded for. So,
people have been waiting for thousands of years for the second coming. It's here. It's here.
There's got to be some odds somewhere that say that whether he's going to make the team or not, right? Like, I think DK or FanDuel or somebody is going to have it in the next couple days. I mean, but honestly, I feel like it would be pretty low for him to make the team. Now, maybe he'll make it, but he's switching positions. Let's not forget that.
Right.
He's how old?
Right.
Mid-30s? 34?
34? I mean, how old was he 2,000 years ago? I think he was in his 30s when he disappeared. And
but right. So, I mean, he's older. He's learning a new position. You know, the one good thing I would say about this is that Urban Meyer, who coached him at Florida, is his new head coach. And even if he's not going to be on the field all the time, as a every down tight end, he'll at least be mixed in red zone packages, which is super annoying for us because
glory. Tell the good word,
Robinson,
Tebow.
If you own James Robinson or Travis Etienne or any of those red zone targets, Marvin Jones signed with the Jags in the offseason. Remember, DJ Chark is still there, and Trevor Lawrence can run it in himself. But if Tebow's down there, they're going to pull some Chris Leak nonsense with him, a bunch of trick plays and all that crap. Do you think it's as prevalent? Like, all jokes aside, this is just a chance for us to be super offensive that whole time. But like the likelihood of making the roster, I think it's 50-50. Yeah, 50-50. Urban Meyer might have an allegiance to it. The thing that works in Tebow's favor is he's not a dominant of anything type of guy. I think he's a flavor back. That's what you would call him. Like, he'll just come in for trick plays. Short yardage, goal line. If they wanted to run a trick play and he wanted to throw, whatever. Like, he is a short package type of player that is there for leadership. That I truly believe this, that Urban Meyer also wants Tebow there to be a version of a mentor for a guy like Trevor Lawrence. Like, not even at the same position. He gets to like be a team leader and like literally, again, jokes aside, gets to like inspire these guys. So he's a team leader who comes in for short packages. But like, how much do you truly believe that Tim Tebow, if he makes the team, is an actual red zone takeaway option from Etienne or James Robinson or any of these guys? Because I think it's like three touchdowns. I think it's like 3 touchdowns on the season for Tebow. I don't see heavy snaps in games. I just don't see it. No way. I mean, if he signs, his main job to me is going to be for goal line carries. That's what his main job is going to be. How often do you think they're going to actually be on the goal line? This is the Jaguars. Yeah, but Trevor Lawrence is good, dude. And I'm not saying that like every single time they get down near the goal line that he is going to come in sub packages or whatever. I would think it would be a decent amount. They get in the red zone 5 times a game. I think he's in there. They'd probably have to get within the 10 for Tebow, but I think he gets in there a decent amount because that's the kind of stuff that Urban Meyer did with Tebow when Chris Leak was the quarterback there. Remember, Chris Leak was the quarterback. Tebow was a trick play guy. And then everyone said, oh, this Tebow guy is going to be way better than Chris Leak after Leak won the Heisman. Yeah. And Tim Tebow came in and he was. Like, and by the way, go and play one of his pregame speeches. I want to get up off my ass and go play for that dude. Like, he is an inspiring guy, but like, he just doesn't have enough success at the NFL level. Honestly, this could be this. I wouldn't say disastrous, but this could backfire because if guys are listening to Tebow instead of Trevor Lawrence, the team leader, I don't like any of that noise. So that's why I say it's 50-50 for him to make. Tim Tebow is simply the shepherd to Trevor Lawrence. Like he's shepherding the word to Trevor Lawrence. I would not worry about that. I think any of the, like, I don't disagree with you. If they're on the 1 yard line, one of the best things that team can do is they're going to literally put Tim Tebow under the center and they're going to just let him pound it in from 1 yard. I think they can do it on 4th downs. The Colts are going to do the same thing. They could do the same thing with Sam Ehlinger because that's what he did, and that's who he reminds me of the most is Tebow. Not a big arm, but he's the size of a defensive lineman. If he made the quarterback, if he made the roster, and I set the over under a touchdowns this year at 3.5, are you smashing the over? I'd smash it. Okay, I would love to know. Listeners, email us in itlballback@gmail.com or tweet us. Is it the Welsh? And at Bogman Sports. In theory, this video we're posting, we're going to have on our YouTube as well. So if you happen to be watching this, you can see the Welsh get winded while he was Tebowing. You can see my Tebowing, and you can see our handles on there as well. And that's something we're going to try to do moving forward, the NFL stuff. So make sure to subscribe, youtube.com/inthisleague. But tweet us. I want to know. You give me the over. Everybody give me the over, assuming he makes the team. What is it? I'm going to set it at 3.5 because I think that's a good number. I just don't see him. Like if James, I think Robinson, it's a good number because even if he makes the roster, right, is he going to stay on the roster the whole year? Yeah. If something happens to Lawrence, are they going to bring in somebody else? You know what I mean? And And
They're
is
not worried
he
about that?
Well, yeah, they're not worried about that, but is he any good, right? Has he lost a step? Is he as big as he used to be? Because he trimmed up a little bit to play baseball. You can't be that muscly and swing the bat.
He was pretty muscly.
Stanton.
He was pretty muscly still, dude. I mean, there's a reason why he also retired from the Mets and he didn't get there. Well, here's what I'm trying to do right now. I've been trying to find like an article with like early redraft ranks, and I found a Yahoo one, but I just don't think they did. Okay, no, they did their P's and Q's. Where do you think overall James Robinson ranks? This was, let me find this because now I know where he is, so I don't have to search. This article, May 4th, by the staff. So I have to imagine our very dear good friend Sex Drive was involved in this in some capacity. So this was done recently. Where do you think James Robinson on their list? This is overall, not running backs. Yeah, I can't see. I don't know if I can. I can sort it after. So this is in half point PPR. I'm gonna let's first do. Or what do you want? The position or overall?
I want the positional.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's
the positional.
Well, I'll give you the overall. Okay. So I got positional now. Half point PPR. Where do you think they have him ranked?
28.
Jesus. I mean Bogman. Jesus Bogman. Are you the same? Absolutely 28. How did you know?
Is it really 28?
It's 100%. But you want to know something disturbing? You know who's 27?
I was going to say just a little bit before 30 was my idea.
You want to know who's 27?
Who's that?
Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne is 27.
So Etienne should be higher than 27 in my opinion. But
my point to that, and by the way, in the overall, James Robinson was like 65. So that's putting him in a standard 12 team.
I was going to say 70 for the overall. So
like in a standard 12 team, it's somewhere between the 5th and 6th round. So and let's say if Etienne is the next running back up, let's just for argument's sake here say James Robinson is a 6th round pick, Etienne's a 5th round pick. Does Tim Tebow and his touchdown grabbing come in and turn Etienne into a 6th round and James Robinson into a 7th? Because you're making it out like he's a real threat and you would have to do something like that.
Well, here's my thing.
There are already deals.
Here's my thing is number one is why would Tim Tebow, right? It's because he has a relationship with Urban Meyer and also he's moving positions. But number two, what can he do this second right now on an NFL field? And for me, that's score touchdowns. You're not going to want him to catch the ball over the middle. You're not going to want him inline blocking for the run. You're not going to want him, out on the field when you have a lot of plays to be made in space.
Like if they want to run option or wildcat, or if they want to have a lot of pre-snap movement, like early Shanahan days.
Wildcat is best at either short yardage, like I said before.
Yeah.
So to come in and hammer a first down run, right? And you don't have to put miles on Etienne or Robinson at that point, or at the goal line where you can do so many things with him. He can throw the ball. You don't need a big arm on the goal line. He can throw the ball. He can run it in, and he can run over a linebacker without issue at all. So my thought process is if they're bringing him in and they legitimately want to use him on the field, it's for goal line and short yardage purposes. That's my thought process.
But this would be one thing I would take a look at.
I don't think he affects Etienne real quick. I don't think he affects Etienne because Etienne is the comparison to Reggie Bush is my favorite. You're not asking him to take, you're not asking him to score a bunch of touchdowns from the goal line. You're asking him to make big plays. Will he get in the end zone? Absolutely, he will. But I think he affects Robinson more because Robinson is that in-between straight line runner that Etienne just isn't quite yet.
So like if Robinson's already affected by Etienne, and let's say Robinson is now a 700 rushing yard guy, just for argument's sake, or whatever anybody has him projected.
That's a good number.
Yeah. 700 yards, and let's say without a Tebow, just for argument's sake, again, 700 yards, 8 touchdowns. Would that be like fair? So, do you think he's now 700 yard 5 touchdown guy, which I think barely makes him? Is barely RB3.
I would say if you're going into week 1 and Tim Tebow's on this team, it has to affect his touchdowns the most. It would affect him, and it would affect Trevor Lawrence more than anybody else, because now you're taking the ball at the goal line for the most part, unless they line him up sidecar. You can do that too, if he's taking the shotgun snap or whatever. But I think it's affecting Lawrence and it's affecting Robinson more than anybody else.
I just feel like if there's like a human being that I'm not going to affect my fantasy values of players, it's Tim Tebow letting me change my mind on Robinson and Etienne. Like, I feel like I already need to have an established plan of how I would attack both of them. And in my personal opinion is not a ton of, I want to say not a ton of interest in both, but if James Robinson is like a 6th round pick, it's kind of enticing because Etienne has the ability to not be a big major back, and James Robinson could still get, if they don't want Lawrence throwing 40 times a game, you could still have Robinson getting 20 carries a game, and you could have Etienne getting 12 touches on the ground and 4 or 5 in the air, and Tebow could still have 1 or 2 of his stupid 2-yard carries.
And this is what I do, by the way, if you're new here. I poke holes. So this is me poking a hole. This is a small factor.
Bogman calls them glory holes.
I love going to the glory hole. So me and Jerry Jones. Have you ever seen that clip, by the way? Mm-hmm. Jerry Jones I want me some glory hole. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I do poke holes. This is a small factor that goes into, I mean, I don't even know. Picture? A much bigger picture. I don't even know if Tim Tebow is going to make the team. It might be a joke. You know, he could show up to camp and they could be like, this guy's got nothing. He's got no arm strength.
I'm in a big white car with a bubble over it.
Right. Yeah. Pope hat on. Yeah. He
white smoke. Oh, Tebow's here. The white smoke came up.
Dude, I just watched Euro Trip last night. So he can't block. He's not good at catching. There's no reason for us to keep him on the team, and maybe he becomes part of the coaching staff at that point. So Tebow, I think more than likely is nothing. What I'm saying is if he makes the team and if they give him a helmet on game days, this is what I would project his role to be, is more short yardage, goal line stuff. But those are big ifs. So it's just interesting because the day we're recording this is the day he actually signs.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a Jacksonville Jaguar player, I would 100% have that white smoke coming out when Tebow came to camp. There is zero doubt in my mind. There was other actual important news. Again, if you're new here to ITL and you're like 15 minutes on Tebow, guys, yeah. I mean, you are new here. A couple other notes before we get into the big, tough offseason questions that you got to tackle for your fantasy teams. Former Packers teammate James Jones believes that Aaron Rodgers' situation with the team is fixable. NFL Network's Mike Ruffalo reported that Rodgers had told Green Bay free agents that he would not be back with the Packers in 2021.
So what is
self-sabotage? Little self-sabotage, but let me throw in here as well, because I remember reporting on this when for that last piece, the latter Garofalo's thing came out, that yes, that's true that he's told free agents, but I don't think anybody believes it because Bakhtiari signed and Aaron Jones came back. Like it doesn't seem as loud as he's apparently being with this whole thing. Everybody's re-signing. That matters. Like James Jones, why would he come back? Because it's against.
Well, James Jones is just a reporter.
Or James Williams. I'm sorry, James Williams.
Justin Williams. Or Jamal Williams. Yeah.
Jamal Williams.
Jesus Christ. Yeah.
Tim Tebow. Why would Jamal Williams come back when his role was relegated is how it was anyways? Not that I think Detroit is that much of a better spot, but like, you're right. Which one is it? James Jones says it's fixable. Reporters are saying it's not. He's telling free agents it's not. I still believe to this moment that he moves on. And I think the Denver Broncos situation is the most likely. They passed on a potential franchise quarterback at 9. I don't think you do that just because you trade for Teddy Bridgewater, unless you think you're going to stink it up this year and you're going to be playing for one of the quarterback next year.
Was out there.
Yeah. Or they don't
drafted Fields and they passed. So.
But it could be a double-sided thing where they say, listen, we don't like Fields enough. We don't see the guy. We still, there's a potential for us to go in with Aaron Rodgers. Let's get the best players to try to win now. We got Teddy Bridgewater. And if they make a trade, and they do, I don't see how this is repairable to the point unless Green Bay bends over and gives the contract demands that Rodgers has, which would also involve them firing the GM. You know, as everybody has labeled it, the good memes, Karen Rodgers is going to get his or her blood. That's what Karens do.
It's hard to know what's happening here, and that's where everybody is. We're going to talk about it more in depth in a little bit here, but it's like it's just hard to know. $23 million. If he retires, he has to give that to the Packers, and if he's not playing, he's got it. But we know this dude. We said this in the last show. Doesn't talk to his family anymore. So if you think money or a personal relationship is going to keep him from not showing up, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You know, he'll give that money back and he'll ride off into the Jeopardy sunset. He doesn't give an S anymore. He doesn't.
Is he still with Danica Patrick?
No, he's marrying some country singer or something, isn't he?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
God, he was over the crystals. Danica's into crystals a lot. So,
oh God.
Yeah.
So anyway, it'll make you a better driver. But so anyway, there's this can still go any separate way. I can't get a good read on it, so it's confusing. All I know is if you're drafting right now and you take Aaron Rodgers, you better handcuff him with Jordan Love. That's what I would say.
I mean, I think handcuff is smart, but I think the bigger question with Aaron Rodgers, well, it's twofold. We'll talk about it because if Aaron Rodgers were to go to a team like Denver, you're going to need to think about those guys, and you have to think about the guys at Green Bay, which we will talk about. Seahawks GM John Snyder said that rookie wide receiver Dwayne Eskridge could play a number of different positions, so you always got to listen when any of the Seahawks are talking about anything. The Athletics' Matt Barrows, I always like Matt Barrows, believes that the 49ers, this is a weird one though, could sprinkle in Trey Lance the way that the Saints have used Taysom Hill in recent seasons. That's the quote. I would say the way that the San Francisco 49ers sprinkled in Colin Kaepernick when Alex Smith was there is exactly what they did. Is they treated Kaepernick more like a slash role where they let him run and they even would throw a little bit. I don't like the college aspect of like, hey, we're going to get him in for like, I don't like what the Eagles do with Jalen Hurts, but I think it goes down the same way where, it's only so long until Jalen Hurts got in. And I think it's only so long until Trey Lance gets
Trey Lance is just so unbelievably fast too. I mean, he had at North Dakota State, granted, the competition wasn't the same, but he averaged 6.5 yards per carry, which means on 169 carries, he had 1,100 yards and 14 touchdowns in his 2019 season.
I like it a lot
with North Dakota State. So he's gonna be fine. But that means
there's a Sproles
he probably
kid?
Gets a helmet every single week.
Did you know there's a Sproles kid? Is it Darren Sproles' kid or cousin or something?
I can't imagine that it is.
There's a Sproles. There's a Sproles at North Dakota State that was celebrating. Maybe he looked like a Sproles. He looked like a Darren Sproles. I'm just saying. Someone can confirm that with me. But it's not a question that we're bringing up here, I suppose. But it's something to consider that if you lose Garoppolo, is there any downturn with Trey Lance to any of the guys? I mean, we've seen George Kittle get hurt a little bit in the offense when quarterbacks can change. You've got Deebo Samuel. You've got Brandon Ayuk. Like, will there be enough comfort in Trey Lance blanketing to George Kittle? Is he going to get his carries? How far the check down's going to go? Like, I'm throwing this out to say that like Deebo is going to be, I think, the first option in San Francisco 49ers wide receiver part of the offense. If Trey Lance is not set for check downs, or if the check down exists of first one, then you go to tight end, or first one and running back, could a guy like Brandon Ayuk struggle in his sophomore year for big plays if a guy like Trey Lance isn't ready for checkdowns? The same questions you asked with Green Bay, could you have the concerns with some of the or some of any of the fantasy options in San Francisco if Lance is the quarterback? Well,
yeah. I mean, rookies are dicey no matter how
but who would
NFL ready they are.
If you were guessing now, who do you think? Could Kittle go from tight end 1 to mid tight end 1?
I would think it's Deebo.
No. Okay, it's Ayuk.
Kittle. Yeah, Kittle is he's the number one option in the Niners offense. I mean, he just is, outside of, the 19 running backs that they'll use. But it's definitely Kittle is he's your best weapon on your team. Deebo missed a lot of the year last year. So did Kittle. So Ayuk was getting number one options because he was the only guy left out there that was making plays. So I think we could definitely see a regression in Ayuk, even with good quarterback.
And a lot of people think the opposite. A lot of people think Deebo, in some of the injuries and stuff, is the guy to avoid this year. And I'm just not
fair.
so sure. I think it's fair, but I don't.
Yeah.
I'm
with you. You know how I am, dude. I love Deebo.
Yeah, so. We're both Deebo guys. ESPN's Courtney Cronin reported that the Vikings are prepared to draft Justin Fields if he fell to the team with a 14th pick. That's just a little draft note for you guys to know.
That also affected my quarterback rankings a little bit as far as dynasty goes, because if the Vikings are already potentially looking for someone to replace Kirk Cousins, that means that they don't have a ton of confidence in him long term. So
yeah,
that guy could be a Pittsburgh Steeler next year. Ben retires, they could try to trade for Kirk Cousins. I would not be shocked.
Yeah, and then a couple moves there is a report out there, and this has been out for like months, but Dave Zingaro of NBC Sports reports that there's a very good chance that Zach Ertz won't play with the Eagles in 2021. I think that's like almost like definitive. I'm still shocked that he's not on a new team, but the Cardinals have been a long rumored team. I think there's a multitude of places that'll buy him on the cheap. They can let Dallas Goedert go. I don't think they need the multi-tight end, and I think the offense is going to change a little bit with Jalen Hurts. So he's gone. I think he's gone. I'd be shocked if he stayed. And you know what? The best thing that could happen is him going.
I think it's 50-50, but I thought it was 75-25 before the draft. Now that we're after the draft and he didn't get moved, that kind of concerns me. So I think it's 50-50 now, but still, let's get him on a different team. Let's get Goddard all those targets.
Eagles also claimed Kerryon Johnson off the waivers from Lions. And I don't know who said it, so apologies. I'm not trying to take their thoughts, but someone will know who it is, and you can cite them, pretend I said their name. But someone was like, so it's really interesting that Kerryon Johnson is absolutely no concern to DeAndre Swift, but because the Eagles claim Kerryon Johnson, he's now a concern to Miles Sanders. Like, get out of here.
No,
you know, and that's how I feel.
Kenny Gainwell is my concern to Miles Sanders, because you see what Indy did in Nick Sirianni coming over from Indianapolis last year when they went, when they finally went to Taylor, it was Taylor. But, before that, they were mixing in Nyheim Hines, and Marlon Mack had a role, and then Jonathan Taylor's in there. So they're using all kinds of backs. They drafted Kenny Gainwell. That's who I'd be concerned about if I'm a Miles Sanders owner. And I am a Miles Sanders owner. So,
yeah, I'm not worried about Kerryon Johnson. And finally, the Ravens offensive coordinator, Greg Roman, said the team plans to expand its passing offense in 2021. No shit. Like, what else? Can you go further down? Like, yeah, I get it. You got drafted a bunch of wide receivers, and Lamar Jackson threw 14 times a game or whatever it was. So, okay, you're going to expand your offensive. Cool, bud. Cool, Greg. We appreciate that.
I mean, they have to. This is what I was talking about last year is, I think they just need to make a concerted effort to let Lamar throw the ball a little more. That's the thing that's getting them behind, is they don't have enough rhythm in the passing game to catch up when they get behind. So they have to win on defense. They have to win in the running game. So if you add another element to your game, you're that much more dangerous. So
to me, this is like more. This is into the void. I don't even want to talk about it, because like, I think if I don't remember,
you don't believe it.
No, I don't believe it at all, because like, I'm just arbitrary. I have no idea right now. I don't know how many pass attempts Lamar Jackson average a game. I would guess right now 18. So let's just go with 18 for a minute. If he were to go to 20, that is nothing. Right. If you are truly expanding,
he would have
you're
to
going
to
25.
Yeah.
Exactly. You're going to 25. You have a like 30 to 40% increase in actually letting him get out there and do that. I don't believe this, because they've got an expanded running game. I think Lamar has to, and I hope he does. But
so he actually averaged 25 last year. That was his average.
What was his completion percentage?
64.4.
How many did he actually complete? Maybe that's what I'm going for.
64 that's about league average, a little below, but he had 26 passing touchdowns. Let's not forget he had 36 passing touchdowns the year before. So yeah,
I hope it happens. I hope it happens.
And this is what I said about Lamar, and we just haven't seen it enough. When he was at Louisville, he didn't scramble. He wasn't throwing the ball, scrambling too much. He was a guy that sat in the pocket and chucked it downfield. So if you give him some time, which is kind of what they did in bringing Alejandro Villanueva in, who immediately started talking a bunch of smack about the Steelers, by the way. So yeah, we'll see how confident he is lined up opposite TJ Watt this year. But he's a good pass blocking option. He's much better at pass blocking than he is at run blocking. So hopefully they do it. They brought in Wallace. Duvernay is still there. They brought in Prochet last year as well. So they brought in, and Rashad Bateman obviously being the biggest one there. They brought in pieces, so they can make it if they want.
It's interesting because it's not part of this question, but maybe it should. And let's get into it, because what we're going to talk about are what we think are the toughest fantasy football questions you're dealing with coming into your drafts. It's still early. It's very early. And some of them will kind of answer themselves as time goes on, and injuries and preseason and stuff like that. But I kind of think this Lamar Jackson one might exist in there as well, because how do you value him? I think there's a place of value for Lamar Jackson this year, especially based on, where ranks are going to go. This early, I'm going to just take a look here. This pretty aggressive. The early Yahoo ones still have Lamar Jackson high. Did you know Sex Drive has Lamar Jackson as his number 1 quarterback coming into this year?
I'm not that surprised.
So he's number
really
3.
Not.
He came in at number 3, averaged out between Harmon and Liz and Dalton and Scott and Andy, but Andy had him at number 1.
I'm not that surprised. He still runs the ball a ton. He is an incredible two-way athlete. So it's not that surprising to me. It's him and Patrick Mahomes and Kyler Murray and those guys. Aaron Rodgers obviously in there too. So there's just a ton. There's a decent amount of quarterbacks, because you might be able to throw Dak in there too. So we'll talk about that.
I said Loz's name like we're like friends. I'm like Liz,
Loza.
So put some respect on me talking. So I'm just like, it's Liz. But if he were lower, I'd be into a cheaper investment. But 3, maybe not so much. So maybe that kind of answers the question.
So in a down year, he was still very high score.
Yeah, he still was, and there's not. So that kind of answers right there. Pseudo answered to say like, hey, how do you treat him this year? Well, it's like, I don't know. I think there's a little bit too much inherent risk. If you still have to take him as like the number 3 in the overall spectrum, it might be a good thing. But in the positional stuff, it still costs a whole lot. But there are some big questions that we are going to tackle, and we're going to go do it right after this.
The In This League Podcast Network.
All right, we have no time to waste. Let's get into it. These are the biggest and toughest offseason fantasy football questions that we're all trying to deal with. We're all trying to figure out. These are the things that are going to end up creating all of our draft strategy. It's going to lead us into the promised land, and the number 1 that every site is going to face. And I think it's a great question to ask, though. I think of all of these, this might be the easiest one to navigate. But is Christian McCaffrey still the number 1 running back? And I think that inherently says he's the number 1 overall player. A lot of missed time last year. They bring in some new blood. They bring in Chuba.
Just real quick, offhand, how many? Do you remember how many games he played last year?
5.
3.
Oh, God.
I mean, so it was obviously a really, really tough year. But if you look at points per game in his 3 games that he played, 30.13. This is PPR scoring, 30.13. Alvin Kamara was second at 25.19. So even when he came back, remember they gave him the ball way too many times in that first game back, and he got banged up again at the end of the game. And then that is where we got all this Mike Davis love from.
I mean, we thought like Mike Davis, as good as he had been, he might be able to like maintain some value and they would hold back. Nope. They just went right back to Christian McCaffrey. And I think that's why, like, when I lead it up here, the injuries were brutal, but it's not something we had we're like walking with all the time. Like, he's always injured or something. It's just a garbage year, and it hurt, and it's going to hurt people that took him first overall. People are going to feel gun shy. But I would also throw out, like, you look at the other players, and this is why I think it makes it easier, because the other guys that are available in that same space, like Saquon would have been the easy number 2. He was hurt the whole year.
And so then he's been hurt.
Yeah. And then you start looking at Dalvin Cook, who's had enough injury history as well. Derrick Henry, who's a workhorse, but not a PPR guy. Kamara, it's still a little volatile. I mean, and then you are truly in a space, like, you want to start from the rookies in there. There's, Chubb.
Let's
and
not
Jonathan
forget
Taylor
that Kamara was crazy vaulted in value because of his 6 touchdown game at the end of the year. I mean, that really helped his value overall when you look at like points per game and stuff. But
that's kind of what I'm building to here, Boggs, to that I ask you this question. This is kind of me asking you these questions as the senior czar, Doge captain. Like the Doge captain of fantasy football here. Like, I asked this question, but I suitably kind of know what the answer is, because I say, is CMC still the number 1 running back? I don't see enough from any other spot to really take me off of it. And here's the only one. If you are super risk adverse, I would say Derrick Henry is the place that you go. I think Derrick Henry is the volume,
talk about him
high touchdown guy. And that's what I'm saying. That's the risk adverse area. But so much of the first half of the fantasy football first round is similar-ish. So I would tell you that CMC presents no other greater risk than the rest of these guys. He had a huge fantasy performance in the games that he played. So I say yes, he still is the number one. But Boggs, what say you?
I mean, he is number one to me still, and you know, it's closer than it was, but it's still not really close. I mean, you know, the concern last year was Matt Rule was going to see how much work he was getting and then go, all right, well, we got to ratchet it back a little bit. He didn't. Even after he got hurt and came back, he didn't ratchet it back. So maybe it'll change this year, but it's not like they added a good veteran piece. If you want to actually take the workload off of Christian McCaffrey, you go and you add Carlos Hyde or Frank Gore.
Yeah, they let Mike Davis walk, and
Mike Davis is gone. They have Reggie Bonifant, they have Trenton Cannon, and they drafted Chuba Hubbard. So I love Chuba too, but he's not going to go in and take carries away from CMC at all, specifically this year. So to me, he's still going to be the lead back and a gigantic workhorse and catch a ton of passes, even though they brought in Terrace Marshall as well. So I think that he's still, to me, the number one running back. And if you look at Fantasy Pros early rankings, it's still early May, but in PPR, his lowest rank from anyone overall is 2.
Yeah, so, and I've still got the Yahoo up here in half-point PPR. I'm just looking at half, so you know it's going to be a step higher in normal PPR. The Yahoo crew is unanimous as him the number one overall player. One overall player is unanimous between all of the Yahoo experts. And I think I would feel a little bit different if when Christian McCaffrey came back last year, they did change the structure of their offense a little bit. And, you know, you saw like a decrease. No, he's still averaging like over 30 points. They bring in arguably a better quarterback. They're bringing in more options to spread the field. He's still going to catch a whole bunch of balls. Darnold he's going to love him. He's going to love him because when Darnold blatantly can't check down to any other receiver, like what will happen, he's going to be able to dump off to CMC.
CMC is the Ghostbuster. He ain't going to be seeing any more ghosts except for that white sheet coming out of the backfield there. Throw it to him. That's your one ghost that you see. So I'm excited to watch this offense. It could be pretty high powered, and that's what Matt Rule is known for out of college, is putting together some really awesome offenses.
And it's going to center around CMC, and I think whatever risk in fantasy football, you can be more risk adverse in the first round, because think about the amount of people that lost their first round picks and can still come up. So you can make do, unlike in some other sports. So you should swing for the fences. And Christian McCaffrey is still a huge swing for the fence type of guy. Second question up, how far does Davante Adams fall and Aaron Jones if Aaron Rodgers is not on this team?
And this is a absolutely fair question. As we asked before, you know, what's going on with Aaron Rodgers? Is he going to retire? Is he going to come back? I think money on the table, Welsh. What is your bet? Straight up odds, same if he stays or goes, and you have $100, you have to put it on. He is in Green Bay or he is not in Green Bay, whether it's traded or retired or whatever.
I'm going to say he goes.
Mine, I would bet that he comes back. So, you know, and we don't have any inside info on that. That's just gut feeling right there. So I think he comes back. But this is a big question because Davante Adams is going as the number one wide receiver, as he should. He had an enormous year last year. He's number one. Some psycho ranks him 14 in Fantasy Pros. I mean,
there is a Yahoo expert that does not have him as a top 6 wide receiver in half PPR.
Even without, I don't know. I guess I haven't done the legwork, so maybe if you go through and you look and see his games without Aaron Rodgers, maybe he's terrible or something. I don't know, but
there's too much of an unknown. I don't think he needs to be the number one wide receiver, Davante Adams, without Aaron Rodgers, and that's shocking. But like he's a great wide receiver.
By the way, that's Andy Behrens. Andy Behrens has him at 7.
I know he has had sex drives. He's got him at 7, and Dalton Del Don has got him at 5. The rest have him as the top 2. But I say you look at the rest of the competition, and you look at guys like Tyreek Hill. Like for me, I'm probably going to look at like Hopkins and Hill. And then like Adams is going to be in there if I don't have Rodgers, because then you've got like another tier of like Diggs and Metcalf and Brown, and maybe I'd even throw Justin Jefferson in there. If Julio was gone, Calvin Ridley might be near the very top. But like in years past, I think there was such separation between the eliteness of wide receivers, and I don't see that as much anymore. But I think I would take at this moment, if I assume there's no Aaron Rodgers, I'm going to take Tyreek Hill and DeAndre Hopkins over Adams right now, because Jordan Love and that offense is too much of a wild card for me. I don't know if I change anything with Aaron Jones, because I think they'll still try to sling the ball. I just don't know what to success. I think they'll need Aaron Jones more than ever. I think he catches the ball. So if I'm answering the question, I would say probably little change with Aaron Jones. I think they rely on him a little bit more than ever, but that is based on where I value him, because I think there's a bigger question to ask when we get to the running back portion of this. Davante Adams, he's not the top option in my eyes without Aaron Rodgers.
And that's more than fair, without Aaron Rodgers. And that must be, look, Barron's looking at his Fantasy Pros record from last year. He was number 11 overall. So that's really, really good. There's hundreds of experts that put their rankings into Fantasy Pros, so especially in football. So being number 11 is really good. So you got to trust that, right? But I think he comes back, so I'm not going to move him down that far. I think Rodgers comes back, so I'm not going to move him down that far. But we've also seen, how good has DeAndre Hopkins been for years with horrific quarterbacks? He had Watt for a little bit at the end, but he had TJ Yates throwing him the ball.
But that's also why I say, like, you don't decimate the value of a guy like Davante Adams. But if the offense is moving a little bit less,
it does have to be lowered if Rodgers is there. I completely agree with that. Aaron Jones, honestly, I feel like Aaron Jones might take a little bit of a bigger hit if Rodgers is gone, specifically if they go straight to Jordan Love. They're not bringing anybody else in, right? Because I think at that point, you want to run the ball a ton, and maybe you start to split carries between Jones and Dillon, so neither one of them really runs out of gas by the end of the year. You got to play good defense. You got to run those guys.
And I agree with that, and that's why we talk about that when we get to this RB, if they're solo backs or not, because I think that lies in there. This is the 370 carry question, if you will, Bogman. Derrick Henry, the workhorse of workhorse. I labeled him a workhorse, but he hit that 375 carry marker. And that is not a common feat, not only in this age of the NFL, but any age of the NFL. So our boy, our dear friend, our bestie, Joe Pisapia, got just trolled to hell last year by losers when they wanted hot takes on running backs. And he's like, well, I think he's going to lead the NFL again. And people are like, you can't, that's not. I think
no one had done it forever. So,
and Derrick Henry did. So it's kind of a big question again. Can Derrick Henry do this again? Can he be the workhorse? And what do you think about the 375 marker?
Well, the 375 marker is the big thing, because most guys that get 375 carries the next year have either an injury or a significant dip in carries. And I just went back to the year 2000, so the last 21 seasons
in the year 2000. Okay.
So Eddie George in 2000, 403 carries. 2001, 315. He played 4 more seasons and he went over 300 carries 3 times, but never hit back to 350. So the 401 was the most carries he ever had, which, by the way, was the second most carries in a season ever. So that was him. But the next year, 2001, 315 carries. Obviously, he's losing a bunch, but that's still a ton. It's still way more than most people. So Eddie George was fine. Edgerrin James, 387 carries in 2000. In 2001, 151, and he missed 10 games. He played 8 more seasons after that, had 300 or more carries 4 more times in his career. So the next year he got hurt, but it didn't kill him for the rest of his career. The next one is Ricky Williams, 2002, had 383 carries. In 2003, he had more carries, 392. He played 6 more seasons and never had 300 carries again. But Ricky had some weird stuff, because remember, the year after he had the 392 carries was the year that he got suspended for pot for the whole year. And then when he came back, he played for Miami because of the financial situation. And then he went and played for Baltimore for a little bit at the end of his career. So he was different. After that, Jamal Lewis in 2003, 387 carries, 2004, 235 carries, missed 4 games, played 6 more seasons, and only had 300 carries once after that. Larry Johnson, most carries in a single season in NFL history, 416 in 2006, 2007, 158 carries. He played 5 more seasons. His highest total was 193, and he only played 10 games 2 more times in his career. So that 400 marker is the real bad one.
And then he just went. You hit 400 and then you hit 400 and then you become Q.
CTE actually now. Michael Turner, 2008, 376 carries, 2009, 178. He missed 5 games, played 4 more seasons, but he went over 300 carries 2 more times. And then DeMarco Murray, 2014, 392 carries. 2015, 193, missed 8 games, played 4 more seasons, and never got back to 300 carries.
Pretty much it was Eddie George and Ricky Williams that were able to get back on that horse.
But if you compare Derrick Henry to one guy on this list, who would it be?
I would compare him to Eddie George.
Me too.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be fine this year. But I think really stacking those seasons really makes the end of your career dry up really fast.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's going to happen to Henry. He's big too.
Makes him a very difficult dynasty. Like this is what's going to be fascinating to me. You guys, if you're listening as this episode is dropping, or if you're listening a couple days or weeks after, patreon.com/ITLArmy, those dynasty ranks, I think it's tough because in dynasty, you're always weighing the now. You know, in fantasy football, I think dynasty is a little bit easier to navigate than baseball because the now and the future intersect a lot easier, but you are intertwining winning now while thinking in the future. That Derrick Henry could be anywhere from the number 1 overall to not in the first round due to the wear and tear. I mean, there's a lot of ways that it can go. So
I don't have
make sure to check out
Dynasty.
There you go. There's the tease right there. Go check it out on the Dynasty list. So the threshold is very tough to get. And that is going to be the biggest marker. So I guess the question, as we need to burn through these other ones, is are you a buyer into Derrick Henry this year?
I'm buying. Okay. I'm buying him right now until he actually has that breakdown. I think you have to. So I'm not going to ding him because he had this many carries last year and say, well, most guys don't do it the year after, so I have to ding him. Derrick Henry, as everyone knows who has ever watched him play, is just built differently. He is. And no running back makes it. You know, every NFL player's got to retire eventually. And these guys take brutal hits and all that stuff. But, I mean, Derrick Henry doesn't really take brutal hits. He dishes them out. Ask Josh Norman. He'll tell you.
Are we still waiting on quarterbacks in this draft? We had 5 rookie quarterbacks. And this is a second question. So let me stop there. Are we still waiting on quarterbacks in these drafts?
I think if you don't get a top 4, then I wait. I think that's how I'm going to play it, because the top 4 to me, and this is the tier on Fantasy Pros, and you guys can see, and it's Mahomes, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. So if Aaron Rodgers plays, maybe you want to throw him in that group too. Just won an MVP. He's pretty solid. So the second tier, though, is still really good. There are separators between, you know, the second tier, which they have here is Prescott, Wilson, Rodgers, Herbert, versus, you know, pretty much everybody else after that. But I think there are good enough guys. I mean, Matt Ryan has so many targets now. Stafford going to the Rams is going to be huge for him with those really good wideouts. Joe Burrow coming back and has insane targets. You know, Tom Brady is going to have AB the whole year this year too. So there are really good options. So I would say if I'm not taking a top 4 quarterback, I'm going to wait till the end and see who I can get.
I think it's similar to last year, just like you said.
Yeah.
I think the tier's a little bit different how you're talking
last
about
year
it.
Was only 2, right? It was Mahomes and Lamar. Those were the 2.
Yeah, you're right, except that it was like a tier 1A, 1B type of situation where it was like those 2 were the top tier. You're taking them in the second round, but then you had this like, if I can now get the value of, you know, Russell Wilson and Dak Prescott, I'll take that. Then if I don't get them, I'm waiting. It's still similar, except how it plays out just on Yahoo for a second is Patrick Mahomes is in tier of his own. Then it moves on to the next 2 guys who they have at quarterback, which I'm not trying to blow up their rankings, but it's like a version of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. But then you have Murray, Prescott, and Wilson all going around the same range because you ended at the 4 spot, whoever that is, and that's around the 60s. So I think the thing to take away is the quarterback position is a little bit deeper this year. I think streaming your quarterbacks works if you don't get the top end, so you pay for the back end. And if you can get a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the 60s or 70s overall, I think that's the play. It's similar to what you said. It's a deep spot. So then it moves to the rookies. You know, is there a quarterback worth looking into? I mean, Justin Herbert was a big payoff. You were a big Burrow guy. Burrow didn't quite work out, but with how, you know, the positions that have moved, and you get Burrow coming back, and you've got some, you know, Jalen Hurts is stepping up. Justin Herbert's out there. I mean, is there truly a rookie quarterback worth taking? Even, I'm going to give you a 16-team league.
Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence is the guy. I mean, it's
okay.
I like Zach Wilson, and I think he starts from day one. I think Justin Fields starts really early, really early. I don't think Mac gets it for a while. I think Cam is there, and I obviously don't think Trey starts pretty soon either. I think Jimmy G is going to get at least 50% of the year. So, but it's Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence walks into a situation where he is the day one starter, and he has really good targets. He's got DJ Chark. They signed Marvin Jones. He's got Laviska Shenault, Travis Etienne, his college running back out of the backfield. James Robinson is a good target. So he already has playmakers in his offense, and the defense is still rough in Jacksonville. So they're probably going to have to play point for point with a bunch of teams or play catch up, and those garbage yards count for us. So Trevor Lawrence is the guy. But I'll say this, and I said this with Kyler too, because I love Kyler when he came out. If you take Trevor Lawrence, you probably need to handcuff him with a Kirk Cousins or another high floor type of a quarterback, because any
Roethlisberger,
sure,
like
someone with a high floor, right? Anyone with a high floor, really, because you are taking a risk if Trevor Lawrence is your day one starter.
Yeah, this is a big question. Do you bury wide receivers because the position is deep, or do you draft them to keep up pace?
This, I think, is the most difficult question here, because, I mean, well, let's take a look. You have that sheet pulled up?
Welsh? I have it up. It up.
So let me ask you this. When you're looking down this wide receiver list, how far down can you go to say, I am comfortable with this wide receiver as my wide receiver number one?
Well, I mean, I am also of the mindset that, like, I know I will have really good running backs with these guys, and I will be honest with you, Boggs. I think I can go, like, of this list, I might be comfortable going 16 deep.
Okay.
That's my number one. Do you not feel the same way?
I feel you could go deeper than that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't argue, but if I'm being critical here and being like, what am I really comfortable with? Their 16th wide receiver is in their 4th tier of Mike Evans. I would say half of this 4th tier, you could make some justification, like, to what you're saying, like maybe Deontay Johnson, maybe DJ Moore. If you got really good running backs, right. You could argue, what if you took 3 straight running backs or 2 running backs, and you got like a Kelsey or a Kittle, and then you come in and you swoop up a Robert Woods or a Deontay Johnson. You could make that argument, but you want to talk like real, true, comfortable wide receiver one. They have 16 as Mike Evans. I would say that crew all above, I'm very, very comfortable with. So that's why this is a great question. You could stack up running backs, and it's so deep you can push these guys down, but then you are ultimately faced with am I keeping pace with the rest of my league with the core of wide receivers? Because, like, it does fall a bit. Like, you get into that tier 6, and now you're looking at like Corey Davis with the Jets and Marquise Brown. Like, that's not the same, where some people might be getting tier 1 and tier 3 wide receivers. So, Bogman, if you're making that decision, do you push them down because it is so depthy in how many number ones, or do you feel that you need to keep pace this year?
I think I'm going to push them down instead of doing the arms race, because I think there's this gigantic middle tier of wide receivers, and it kind of goes to me from 24 to Tyler Lockett, way down here. I think all the rest of these guys could be in the same range as him, all the way down to like 46, where they've got Devontae Smith You know, I
So
think
you're essentially saying like they have 25 as Brandon Ayuk. So that's the start of this like new realm.
Well, I would start with Lockett, but yes.
Oh, you were counting Lockett. So
I would put Lockett in there.
Lockett down to, Devontae Smith, Michael Gallup, that type of range.
I feel like, whatever order they end up in on Fantasy Pros, I think 46 could end up at 24 and 24 could end up at 46. So I think that's a giant tier of good enough wide receivers to be your wide receiver 2. So I'm with you. You can take someone in that range as your wide receiver 1 before Lockett to me. I like some of them way more than others, obviously. But I think in that big range, there's so much talent there that I think I would rather go and take a Kelsey and take a Kittle or a Mahomes or Lamar Jackson or whoever, and then bury the wide receivers a little bit deeper, because I think there are some really, really good values in there, in my opinion.
So let me ask you, attached to this one, and then we're going to go to the final big one here, is we're talking about that top tier. What about two guys? Let me look at this list. Let me see what I wanted to say was correct. If we focus on that 16 that I gave you, okay, there are only two. I think this is a correct statement I'm going to give you. Yep, there are only two combo teammates in the top 16. You have the Tampa Bay guys at 15 and 16, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. And then you have Julio Jones and
Calvin Ridley. Kyle Pitts comes in. How and in what way does Kyle Pitts impact those guys if we're talking about them being the comfortable number ones, both of them? I mean, I think it's the touchdowns, because that's what Kyle Pitts did in college, and I think that's what he's going to do in the pros too, is be a red zone magnet. So I think that he drives them both down. I mean, I think if Kyle Pitts wasn't on this team, you would see Julio higher. You'd see Calvin Ridley maybe in that top 4 or 5 because of the step he took last year. He would probably be, a lot of people have AJ Brown at 5. Maybe he would go ahead of AJ Brown if Kyle Pitts wasn't there. So I think they're appropriately ranked as far as this goes, because where is Julio? I totally whipped on him.
13.
He's at 13. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's appropriate, but I think not only does Kyle Pitts take a little off of them, but the lack of running game there too. Mike Davis as the lead back. They've talked about how they're going to have an open competition, so we could get a James Robinson type situation out of Huntley or Hopkins there, the UDFAs that they sign. But I think this is going to boost Matt Ryan's value up much further too. So like if you went Lawrence and Matt Ryan, I think that's a great combo right there.
I like that too. I definitely like that too. All right, here's the last one, and this is the biggest one. And it has to deal with running backs, and it's identifying committees versus true solo backs if they really exist. We're talking about, okay, quarterbacks, do we take them early? Not necessarily. We can push them down a little bit. Are we taking wide receivers high to keep pace, or do we push them down because there's so much depth? We're going to probably push them down a little bit. So we are going to be investing in running backs, but more and more every single year, committees become bigger, and the guys that are true solo backs become smaller. So Boggs, this is your chance to let us know and identify who are the true, I'm not going to use the word workhorse. I think we can put a workhorse next to them if we want to say they are, but who is the solo back, they own the backfield versus true committee situations. Committee is not the end. Committee does not end a running back, but it leads to bigger and more concerning questions, especially with high investment. So RBBCs versus solo backs. Yeah, because Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt are committee backs, but they're both very high end because Cleveland runs the ball so much, and they're both really, really good. Here are the guys that I put as quote unquote solo backs. Doesn't mean another back's not going to come in, but I expect these guys to get 2/3 of the touches every game that they're out there. Okay. That's how I am saying solo back. Okay, that's good, because I the guy we talked about before, Aaron Jones, I think there's a legit concern. I think Dylan is someone to monitor this year. And I know they re-signed him. So when you put solo back, I would almost argue, and still maybe a little bit argue, that think by the end of this year, Aaron Jones might be in this RBBC category with him.
And I think that's fair.
Okay.
And I kind of wrestled with that one because I really do like AJ Dillon, but AJ Dillon is between the tackles only.
So this is 2/3 production at the running back position. These are identified solo backs. All right, who do we got?
Right. And the first one is a little controversial too. I got Myles Gaskin as a solo back because he did it at the end of the year. He was their guy. So,
and I don't think it's controversial because he was the biggest draft winner because they brought in nobody to compete.
And this also doesn't say that I trust these guys to stay healthy or I draft them high either. This is just when they're out there, I think they're getting 2/3 of the touches.
They get an extra boost for being the guy that has opportunity. I know opportunity can be an argument in this industry and stuff like that, but if you're looking for floor because of opportunity and you want to attach it to talent and stuff, these are opportunity backs.
Right. So Gaskin, Najee, Joe Mixon, even though he had health issues, I still think he's the guy there. They let Bernard walk. Derrick Henry is not a question. Jonathan Taylor's not a question. This one's a little questionable. Clyde Edwards-Helaire I have. And I think we're going to get a little overcorrection because he let so many people down last year, and he might actually come out of value this year. I think that's interesting.
I'm with that.
Austin Eckler, just when he got back out there, they threw him the ball and they didn't throw it to anybody else. He's still a guy. Antonio Gibson, because they don't have a ton there. Maybe he's a little more mixed because they have McKissick, but I still think he's mainly the guy. Remember, this is going to be his first year being a solo back really by himself at any point because he wasn't that at Memphis either. Saquon is, Zeke is. I still think Miles Sanders is, even though they might break up some stuff. Aaron Jones, Dalvin Cook is, Kamara is, CMC. I got Cam Akers because at the end of the year, he was used almost exclusively. And then I put Mike Davis in there because I think he is the front runner of this Atlanta job. I think he's the best option, and I don't think there's a lot behind him. So I think Mike Davis, because we saw him perform in Carolina last year, I think he is the number one back for Atlanta.
And then if you go confidence, let me do a marker here. If we get all the solo backs, now here's a confidence level I would put on them. I would say I have confidence in probably Najee Harris, but I'm going to leave him out because we're talking real true confidence. And now I'm going to put him in. Now I'm going to put him back. I can't.
Okay.
Najee Harris, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Eckler, Barkley, Elliott, Cook, Kamara, McCaffrey, and then maybe Helaire.
I don't think you can say maybes. So if it's a maybe, it's a no. So
I'm asking you. Like I kind of want to put him in there because I agree with the overcorrection. So I'm going to put him in.
I think the ones I have the least confidence in of this list are probably Gaskin, Helaire, Miles Sanders. And I didn't put him in there. Okay, so did you say Eckler? I did say Eckler because they just seem to want to push someone into that job. They drafted Kelly. They're trying Justin Jackson. They could bring in someone. I wouldn't be surprised. And it seems like they try to push Eckler out of that.
So
job.
Maybe 8 to 9 that you're confident in that they continue with that role, and then their production is it's up for argument. But that leaves these solo backs plenty still in question just because they're solo backs. All right, so now RBBCs.
Yeah, and here's a couple that maybe people will push back on me with. I mean, Tampa Bay is a mess. I think San Francisco is a mess. I think Arizona definitely has two in Edmonds and Connor. Detroit, I still really like DeAndre Swift, but they signed Jamal Williams, and I don't think they signed him to do nothing. So I don't think it's 2/3 Swift, but I still think he's the main guy there. Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake is another one that concerns me a decent amount because I like Josh Jacobs a ton. I think he should be the guy, but he got banged up a little bit and they brought in Drake. They didn't bring him in to do nothing. Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, I think most people would agree with me there. Montgomery concerns me because he just hasn't run away with the job yet. And that's why they signed Damian Williams, who didn't play last year. Still should be Montgomery's job. And I hope he's 2/3, but I can't confidently say that. Etienne Robinson will split. Houston is a mess with David Johnson, Philip Lindsay, and Mark Ingram. Cleveland is a good split. Baltimore, I love Dobbins, but Edwards is going to get his carries, and so is Lamar. The Jets are a mess. New England's always a mess, and Buffalo's a mess.
So what's interesting about this crew? Because people assume committee is like a bad word. It's it's a 4-letter word that's more than 4 letters. But there's obviously committees that transcend that. When I look at this, Boggs, I see 4 situations that I just don't care about the committee here. It doesn't bother me. I don't think twice about it.
Can I guess them?
Absolutely.
They are Dobbins in Baltimore.
Yes,
Cleveland.
you're correct. Yeah, obviously, that's the easy one.
Obviously. Chicago and Detroit.
Nope. Neither one of those.
Neither one of those.
The other two are the Raiders with Josh Jacobs.
Okay,
I know Kenny Drake
fair.
comes in, but I just don't think you take away from Josh Jacobs. I don't think the team is looking at that. And they're talking about Kenny Drake playing wide receiver in this offense. So
Kenyon Drake was talking about Kenyon Drake playing wide receiver.
Okay, well, they, him, whatever, third person. And the other one, you might disagree. I'm going to say the San Francisco 49ers because it's their offense is built around this. Raheem Mostert is still going to eat, but you have to appropriately value and understand him. I think the Trey Sermon stuff is going to get a little overblown.
It's
Jeffrey Wilson gets his run
from last year because I was supreme confidence in Mostert last year.
But you wanted to pay the price. I did not want to pay the price. He's coming out of value. What I'm getting at is like, I have to look at these committees and go, all right, well, how can I where's my confidence level in committees that I still get the production that I'm valuing in? And the J.K. Dobbins, I think this one's a little overblown, but they run a ton. Josh Jacobs is still the man. Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt doesn't even matter about them being on this list. But I look through the rest. I don't have confidence in Montgomery right now. I kind of agree with you. Melvin Gordon and Williams. Swift, I completely agree. Swift is someone I'm a little concerned with Jamal Williams.
I'm going to
out there
have so
too.
many shares.
That's good. But I look at the Niners and I go, well, like the Ravens, they're a team that can have two fantasy relevant running backs at any time, regardless of the passing game.
I have no confidence in who the two are going to be, right?
But I have confidence it's Mostert and somebody else at all times,
and that's
unless
good.
Mostert's hurt.
But yeah, Mostert played 8 games last year, and this is 1 year after coming, across a career high of 137 carries.
But he's going after like the 7th round. Like he's
where
do you think he is on the Yahoo list? Let me look here. What running back do you think?
26.
Let me look here. You're incorrect.
I might be a little low.
31.
31?
He's a 31st running back, which puts him as a
flex. I think I like him at that value.
And he's coming in at 68 in half-point PPR. So, I mean, he like the running back he's above is Ronald Jones, and he's below James Robinson. I think that's a great range for him.
Healthy yet, right?
That I agree with.
And Sermon hasn't either. That's why one of my deep sleepers is going to be Elijah Mitchell. I love Mitchell at a ULL. He is going to be a really, really good running back for your Niners, I think. And I think
the Niners will run it better too. 30 times a game. And Raheem, of any of these players, you forget Raheem Mostert is a guy that can make the most of 13 carries, even if they spread it out. So that's why you get into the San Francisco 49ers because of a committee. Arizona's messy, Tampa Bay's messy, Detroit I think got messier. There's some that are trash. The Houston and Jets situation.
Here's my pushback on Mostert is I really like Mostert. I think everybody knows that from the way I was talking about him last year. But I don't think if you're super confident in Mostert and Jeff Wilson, you go out and spend 2 draft picks on running backs, right?
Yeah.
I think you're trying to max because you run the ball a ton. And I think you're absolutely right about that. And for the record, I do think it's Mostert and Sermon or Mitchell. And one of those guys is going to be riding the pine. But Mostert has gotten hurt. They run the ball with multiple backs. And they have so many good weapons. And if Lance gets in there, he is a better runner than anybody else on that team. So I pull a little bit away from the running back position as a whole for San Francisco, which means I have to knock Mostert a little bit as well.
Listen, it's a possibility the Niners could be the Ravens. Trey Lance could be the Lamar, and he could turn into the Gus Edwards while having Sermon turn into the J.K. Dobbins, and it's a dynasty question. But this is what's great about that. So the big question, we're not telling you how to attach and draft this. The question is, who is truly in a running back by committee situation? Who is a solo back? And then we have a little bit of discussion about, where's your confidence on the solo backs and where's your confidence on the running back by committees. There's a million other questions, but those are the ones to get you guys through to some of these best balls.
And we want to do
stuff we're going to do.
We want to do a mailbag episode next week too. So send your questions in to itlballbag@gmail.com and dynasty, redraft, whatever. We just want to take questions for next week. That's what we want to do.
Listener ballbag, itlballbag@gmail.com. We are going to have a best ball breakdown. We are going to start dipping our toes into some mock drafts. Yes, we'll be talking dynasty. Yes, we'll be talking super flex. Absolutely, we're going to be doing all that stuff. Lots of draft prep. We're going to be bringing people on to have mock drafts with us. You want to secure your seat at one of our mock drafts, make sure you're part of the ITL Army on Patreon. You want to know the latest that's coming out? You want to get your question first aligned by dropping in the Patreon room? Patreon.com/ITL Army. Plus, we've got a million other cool things that you guys can check out. So hopefully you want to support us, get the dynasty ranks, get the rookie ranks, get all the other fun stuff, because ITL is back, baby. And you guys can check us out right there. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of it, and follow us on Twitter at @IsItTheWelsh, @Bogman Sports. Questions answered, Boggs. You're off the hot seat.
I'm off the hot seat. Good, because it is hot in here, because we already hit triple digits this year.
Yeah, triple digits in Arizona. So, all right, guys, we'll be back with you again next week. Send those questions in, and Bogman and the Welsh. See you guys next time.